Cheers, Mr. Pratt.
We doing this?
Welcome to the BBD podcast, episode 12. We're actually shooting this podcast live, but it's going to continue to stay up here on my new YouTube channel. So, big shout out to all 6,400 of you guys that are subscribed to this new platform of mine. You guys are going to continue to see these Big Bass Streams podcasts as I continue to travel through the country and interact with anglers that I have a ton of respect for. And as I've discussed in the past, and this is no salt towards any other podcast or anybody else out there doing their own thing, showing their own perspectives, but I want this BBD podcast to feature anglers that I'm fascinated about, kind of a players only perspective, right? Because you get a different dynamic when you got two guys that can relate to experiences, and in this case, in regards to big fish. So, thank you for coming on, Jay Pratt.
Thanks for having me. This has been a long time coming.
Long time
coming.
We've been talking about this for months.
Yeah.
Since last summer.
Yeah.
Really, when we were up in Minnesota chasing big bass streams and big largemouth, in relative terms, that
Right.
is,
Yeah.
from Minnesota.
For Minnesota, they're big.
So we'll talk about that a little bit, but if you guys haven't already, make sure you guys subscribe to this man's YouTube channel. We've got
getting it going.
240 subscribers.
Yep.
That's an injustice, as my man would put it.
I haven't put I'm just getting it going, it's just, but no, we're getting to what's important about this, and it's a good one, this your first one, we're getting to the core of pioneering a bite that you can't really do much of anymore, because it was the swim bait bite, right? That's what gets people really excited, and it hadn't been done before. We were throwing a lure that hadn't been proven. So this is a story that's been aching to be told by me, needing to be heard by you guys, because what was the story? What was it like when swim baits had not been seen by these big bass? What was that like?
See, I didn't get to have that experience where I'm from, Southern California. There was a whole generation of guys before me.
Yeah.
That had
your fish weren't as ignorant.
They weren't as ignorant for sure, and
Yeah.
even in the golden eras, and I've seen a few of them come and go now.
Yeah.
It was never what you
Yeah.
experienced, which is very special.
Yeah.
And that's not to take away from your fishing ability and your prowess, because your body of work speaks volumes.
Yeah.
The same way I'm from California,
Yeah.
and had to really rise through all the pressure and
Yeah.
the conditioning that these fish were being subjected to.
Oh yeah.
There were other guys fishing here.
Yeah.
And to paint you guys a little bit of a backstory, we're actually in the Appalachian Mountains for the most part, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's all Appalachian.
And we're here shooting a series for Black Rifle Coffee this season, 2021.
Yep.
And it's an adventure series in between my Bassmaster Open events. So if you guys were wondering what I'm up to this year, big focus, Bassmaster Opens. Your boy's trying to win one. Not trying to qualify for this, not trying to earn points, not trying to cash checks. I'm literally trying to win one. So took a shot. First tournament's out of the way. We've got 8 more I'm really excited about. But through the Black Rifle Coffee series we're doing for Free Range American, we're going to be doing adventure stuff. That's big fish chasing, multi-species, just diving into local culture, which we've done here in this part of the country. It's really cool. So big shout out to Black Rifle for supporting us on this adventure. Yesterday I got to fish with another local, Mr. Austin Neary, right? Yep, Dreamcatchers fishing, and we went to a lake I'd never heard of. And I've done some research now, ever since I got these guys on my radar doing what they were doing out here. And I've heard of several of the lakes in the area that you guys are doing this on, but we went to one that I had never heard of.
Listen, I had never heard of it. There's all these little Appalachian reservoirs.
Very special part of the country.
Yeah.
A lot of options. Really tough to drag a 22-foot bass boat up and down these mountains.
Yep.
But well worth it. We went out there, we threw big baits. Austin had 5 eats. I had probably 5 or 6 eats, and it made for a fun day. No giants, but
A lot of action.
a lot of action. But we had to work for it.
Yeah.
It's still a puzzle that
Yeah.
needed to be pieced, and that was a nice little change because it had been such tough fishing. Because you and I have been trying to pre-fish for this series.
Yeah. We've had a rough pre-fish, yeah.
So even though we're here, where you did all this work and have all this history, we've got what, 4 fish?
Yeah, probably, yeah. That sounds
4
right.
fish
Sounds
out
right,
of
man.
3-4 days.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty tough.
And the water was 54 degrees, so I don't have an excuse to blame.
I've been excited to be out here.
Yeah.
But let's turn back the dial. Let's go back in time. How did you and I initially connect?
Well,
No homo.
yeah, right. No, well, we just, we became aware that we both were throwing big baits.
Yeah.
I believe. I don't want, well,
In
you might know more than
2000s?
me. Yeah, no, it was like 2011, 2012. When did Big Bass Streams come out?
Oh man, Big Bass Stream started in 2012.
Okay, so that's probably when...
I'm talking about cow fishing, man.
Oh, cow fishing. Oh, shoot. So, yeah.
So
Cow fishing, yeah. That's,
tell the people at home what cow fishing was.
Yeah, so to me,
'Cause
what it
most
meant to me...
Most people don't know what cow fishing was.
Okay,
What are
yeah.
these guys talking about?
So, cowfishing.com. Rob Bellany was the creator of
Yep.
it. He had Nico as his best friend. And there was a series of forums. He had freshwater, saltwater, general forum. And back then, that's how we access fishing forums or fishing reports. People would post cow fishing, freshwater report or saltwater report, and stuff like that.
So it was California based.
Yep.
And it was mostly NorCal guys, to be
Yeah.
honest. But it was one of the first communities
Yeah.
where guys discussed big bait fishing
Mm-hmm.
for big fish.
Absolutely. Rob Bellany was on that. He got that going with cow fishing. And so that's actually kind of where my story started with swim baits. As like a 14-year-old, I got on cow fishing. So we can delve into that in a second. But I connected with Rob Bellany. He invited me to get in with a clique of guys, and I'm trying to think the names, but there was a big group of guys that were talking swim baits, and they were like, he invited me over because he was like, this guy on the East Coast, this little 14-year-old, 15-year-old, he's throwing swim baits, and they just wanted to invite me into the little clique they had.
What year is this?
That is 2002, 2003. Wow. That's not.
So this is predating social media.
Yep.
This is predating YouTube. There were no big publications or shows or resources for information that you were seeking at the time.
Right.
That many people now are seeking.
Exactly, and they get so easily. Well, that's why swimbait culture has been, exploded. But back then, dude, it was nothing. Like, you were looked down upon. First of all, like, people saw me throwing an Osprey in the beginning. People were like, "What is that dude doing?" Like, it's like a salt. They were like, "Is he fishing for sharks?" That whole story. But no, it was something that hadn't been done before. And cow fishing was that little community of people I got in with, and I was able to discuss stuff. But it was something that hadn't been proven, and that was predated, like he just said. I mean, I think the only baits available were my first bait was the stalker trout. There was AC plugs, and MS Slammer,
the Osprey,
and the Osprey.
Maybe a generic trout from Rago at the time.
Maybe yeah, Rago may have been in there.
So you're originally from Florida.
Yep. I was born in Charlotte, from Florida. That's where I did a lot of my fishing. Was Jacksonville, Florida, St. John's River. Really tough fishery on the north end of that. You catch more redfish than you do largemouth bass.
That ain't so bad.
No, I mean, it was fun. I mean, we would be, hey, shout out to Brock and Marshall. We'd be on Doctor's Lake throwing lipless crankbaits, catch 50 reds a day and maybe 3 bass.
Dude, that's fun.
I know, but we were going for the bass, and it's very brackish waters. You'd see dolphins and manatees and all that. So how the heck do I end up going for mountain trout fed lakes? Well, grandparents had a house, North Carolina, South Carolina border. I would go there. This is where I learned to swim, learned water ski. I would go up there as a little kid, and I was fascinated. There was wolf packs of 9 to 11 pound bass that would just cruise the bank, and I was fascinated by their behavior, how they reacted to my lures. That's where it started. It was like an aquarium full of big bass, and they would snub their nose 99.9% of the time at every offering you had. So that fascinated me. It was a challenge. I was like, dude, there's got to be a way to get these really huge bass to bite.
Right.
That's kind of starting where it was going on in my head with swim baits. Yeah.
That's cool, man. So you found yourself in this area. You kind of put two and two together.
Yeah.
And what brought it upon you to be like, these big fake rubber fish are gonna be the deal?
Yeah. So I knew Lake. It was Lake Lanier. It's a little lake on the border, not the big Lake Lanier. They stocked it. The Lake Association stocked it with little rainbow trout. Actually, not the brown trout that we're used to. Some rainbow trout, and I was thinking, I had heard kind of like, okay, West Coast guys threw like a bass tricks, one of those like giant bass tricks. Yeah.
And we're not talking about hollow belly bass tricks.
Yeah, no.
You're talking about a big boot tail that was actually one of the first ones I remember being poured with two big single jig hooks, kind of like on the Defiant.
Yep, absolutely.
Right, but it was molded into the bait.
Yep.
Guys were catching giants on that at Lake Paris at the time.
I mean, it doesn't look good in the water.
Honestly, it was very, very.
On its side.
What's the term I want to use?
It worked.
Rudimentary.
Yeah.
Right. For its time, it was unique, and it had a double hook system. It had a boot tail as a swimming mechanism. The plastic was kind of funny.
It's hard.
It was kind of stiff.
Stiff.
So it was wonky. So like, I had a hard time getting mine to swim.
Yeah.
At the time, I didn't have a lot of confidence. I was fishing the little one, even like a little 6-inch one.
Yeah.
But they had a
12.
a big one. It was at least 10.
Yeah.
And those, they all went white in the head. Whatever chemical reaction the lead had with the plastic that
so funny
that Bruce Porter was using.
Yeah.
But big shout out to Brian Evans, who actually has just acquired Bass Tricks from Bruce.
Oh, nice.
So look out for the OG
Yeah.
product to come back at you, man. We got Flash Tricks coming back, the paddle tails, and who else? Who knows what else Brian's got up his sleeve.
That's all. I didn't know they were rebounding.
Man. Coming back at you. So
that's sweet.
SoCal.
That's so cool to hear. Yeah, SoCal, and that's cool to like that big first 12-inch Bass Tricks is heaping piece of rubber. That kind of intrigued me. I was like, well, will these big fish respond to that differently? You know, it's just kind of the science of it. These fish reacted. You know, that's what I love about fishing. First of all, is trying different baits, seeing how the fish react. So. I was doing little science experiments as a little kid out there on that lake, and that's really kind of where my imagination, maybe creativity, kind of was like, I want to see what these bass do. So I was in contact with this guy Patrick Ellison, and he knew about cow fishing. He's like, dude, these guys fish MS Slammers, and they fish big baits.
That was another one at the time.
Yeah, and so I went on cow fishing and started posting on there. And I think Rob Bellany kind of contacted me pretty quickly because he could see that I caught a lot of big fish on super flukes and like normal. I was an up and coming little kid, just Florida, Texas rigs, just normal stuff. But I was telling him, man, like I want to throw big baits. And me and Patrick were like, let's try the stalker trout. I mean, for you guys that don't know, they made a 10-inch, maybe a 9-inch, and a 7. So we ordered the 7-inch because
the guys like Doc Holliday had the 12s.
The 12s, they were special. Well, so then I also ordered an Osprey, but yeah, I ordered a 7-inch stalker trout and like a 9-inch Osprey. One of the inline.
Yep. The Talon.
The Talon. So what year? That might have been 2004 by then, maybe.
Right. Probably distributed by the old Uma X company.
Yeah.
I mean, man, that's going back, bro.
So. First swim bait experience. Am I jumping ahead with this? Or
no, you're good, man. You're good. Let's talk about
So my imagination, I was like, these fish, whatever, I want to show them something different. Stalker trout, Osprey and boat. I went out with Patrick on Lake Lure, North Carolina, near Asheville.
Okay.
Not really, it's stocked with trout, but they're big, 12, 14-inch trout. And we went out, May, cloudy day. We were fishing traditional stuff. There's big fish in the lake. We weren't getting any reaction. picked up stalker trout, 7-inch, rock wall bank, threw it up, and I mean, I swear I'm dreaming to this day that this happened, but first cast, reeling it, and it's doing this, you know, the stalker trout had wings on it. I never finished that. It has a top hook, and it has wings and a joint, and it's rubber. So it would kind of do what glide baits do. It tried to.
For sure.
It would
hunt left and right.
It would hunt left and right, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good way to say it. So I literally threw it up against the wall, started cranking, first cast with this bait. Rises up, a 10-pounder, comes up from it, is hot on it, like it wants it no matter what. There's nothing I can do to keep this bait away from this fish. I mean, I could have just, and I reeled it, she missed it, came around, turned around, and engulfed it, set the hook, had her hook for a second, popped off. And I'm just like, oh no! I flip, do the underhand sea cast up to the rock wall again, different fish, bigger, 12-pound balloon, just giant bass, does the same thing, inhales it from the head strikes it. I literally bend down, like, let her have it, like a wormfish or a jigfish.
And this is a tough bait to get a hook into because it's a single jig hook.
Yep.
Then you got these big, hard, rigid, clear plexiglass, pretty much, wings on the side of this bait. So, like, they got to eat that thing perfectly.
Yep.
So they're coming around and attacking the head. I mean, what do you do?
I mean, the wings are knocking it out of its mouth. So I sat down, I let it eat it, and I just rip into it. And me and my friend Ryan Tony find this pretty funny. We call it a shotgun snap, where the line snaps at the reel and makes a like a loud, like it's like shocking sound.
And it's monofilament.
It's mono, yeah, it's mono.
Back then it was only mono.
It was only mono back then.
Unless you're freaking spider wire.
Yeah, no, I had mono, but it shouldn't have snapped. It was probably old line. I wasn't expecting a 12-pounder.
It was probably like 15 pound or something. Because you thought that was heavy.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a giant bait.
We thought 15 pound was like rope. Now I'm using it on an ultralight gear with a Hazardog shad.
Well, that Osprey and that 7-inch stalker trout were like, I mean, enormous saltwater baits.
Right.
We were like,
what size were you throwing? The 7-inch?
I was the 7-inch, and it still felt pretty big.
Still pretty big.
But now it's tiny. It feels like a trick worm to me, like a 5-inch Cinco to me. So set the hooks, shotgun snaps at the reel, and this 12-pounder just swims down, and I think the lure popped out, but the line is floating. I'm sure we only have one, and this lure's working, and clearly I've already put that together. I'm like, they're biting at every cast. Like, I'm gonna catch a limit of a 50-pound limit. And so the line is floating, the mono, and I still see it. So I reach down to get it, and I can't quite grab it, and so I fully jump into the lake. I have my cell phone, which was a little flip phone back then, jump into the lake, try and grab line, whiff on it, come back into the boat, and it's just like shame and excitement at the same time.
That's amazing. Let me backtrack this, because on every podcast I open them up by asking my guest, what is the one fish that busted your ass that you still think of? Is this it? Is she the one? Or is there a different one?
Yeah,
We're like, oh man, I wish I had that cast back.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, this is the one that clearly sparked it in me for swim baits.
It validated.
It validated that this works, and these fish were ignorant to it. And it hadn't been done before. And so it was a whole pioneering thing. That was the fish that, like, I immediately called the thick pins. They're the ones that make the stalker trout. I immediately got them on the phone, and I was like, and told them what happened.
Wow.
So it lit a fire under me. Like, swim baits are the way to get these fish in these lakes, that they've become very smart. They haven't seen this. I just knew instinctively, as a 15-year-old or whatever, that I had stumbled on something super special. And this is like a root. This is the root of a lot. Like, what we're talking about right now is the very beginnings of swim bait fishing. It set me on
dark path that you're still on right now.
If that had never happened, I'd probably be a lawyer by now, a doctor.
A total failure.
Total
failure in life.
But when that bite happens to you and you have it to yourself, look what it did to me.
Oh man, that's crazy.
It's wrecked me. It's
totally wrecked you, man. So prior to that experience, coming into your first day throwing a swim bait, what was your PB at the time?
I caught a 28-inch fish that I did not weigh, but I think it was probably 12 out of that small lake. And
on what?
On a super fluke. Now, So I had this technique. We can go here for a second. They would wolf pack. They would swim in packs of 6 or 7. They were all
Herring
big.
lake?
What?
Is it a herring lake?
No, it's not Herring Lake. No, it was the lake that they stocked trout that my family lived in. Or my grandparents had a house
So they were
on.
wolf packing on trout.
They were just cruising the bank. So they do this in certain lakes, like not many. They were just cruising the bank as a family almost. Like, we're all the same size. We're gonna cruise this bank. No, they weren't even. They were kind of just. You would see it. I mean, this happened routinely. You'd see it every day.
Wow.
And I saw them coming from from this way, and so I skipped a super fluke. That was one thing that they had shown interest in. So I skipped a super fluke under the rhododendron trees hanging over this mountain lake, and the wolf pack came up, and then one nosed down on it. And this was in June. They weren't bed fish, so I caught it. It was 28 inches. I had
That's a giant fish.
Throwaway camera. I had some local lake guy take a picture.
These kids these days don't know the struggle to get a photo of this quality.
I mean,
you guys
this
don't
is
know
a
the
Canon.
struggle.
No, but yeah, throwaway.
Oh my god.
Throwaway camera. This is dating me really bad. This is dating me, but this story has got to be told. But yeah, no. So that was a 28 inch throwaway camera. Even into my HUD days, I was doing throwaway cameras.
Oh, for sure, me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. 20. What do you get? 24 exposures.
Yeah.
So don't blow it.
Don't take more than
Oh
one
my
or two.
gosh. And then you got to rely on somebody else.
Yeah.
A lot of times because I fish solo.
Yeah.
In the day.
Oh gosh.
Hey man, can you take a picture for me? And dude, your head's like cropped out. Half the fish is gone.
Yeah.
It
Ridiculous.
was a nightmare.
No. Yeah. Oh yeah.
You go to these photo development places with all the excitement.
Oh yeah.
I can't wait to see this.
This big fish.
And then you freaking get your actual pictures in hand, and you're going through them, and you're like, what the?
Looks awful.
What the?
There's no going back. You didn't get enough on your iPhone or your...
No man, it's crazy.
So no, I had a throwaway camera picture of this 28 inch fish. That was my big one. In Florida, it was only like an 8.5 pounder in that really brackish water at St. John's.
It's a big fish.
I mean, yeah, it was. It was for my age on a little Texas rig trick worm, Marshall Brock trick worms in Florida.
Super dilate or bubblegum?
Zoom trick worm. You know, I used the black in the dark water.
Ooh.
I was even doing that type of thing back then. I didn't do the pink like the little 13-year-olds normally do. I don't know. I've never done the bubble gum. Although, in dirty water...
Hey, they eat bubble gum, man. I've seen it.
I was almost about to give away a secret. Pink. Word.
No. So, you just broke off this monster fish on a 7-inch giant swim bait.
Yeah. Oh, it felt like it was a big one. Yeah. So... Yeah, you asked me what my biggest fish was before this whole incident where I snapped this 12-pounder probably off. And, but like we talked about, like it catapulted me into the swim bait world because I knew that these fish were reacting differently than I had ever seen. I had thrown everything conventional at them. And this was a different bait, and they reacted to it. And so it was just so exciting. So you asked me my biggest fish. It was, I caught this 28 fish. We were talking about the throwaway camera.
Right.
And then, like I had a 28 fish on throwaway camera, and then I had I guess it was like a 9 or 8.5 in Florida.
Now, was it a built 28 fish, or was it a skinny 28-inch fish? Because that matters.
Yeah, it was post-spawn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've had 27-inch fish that weighed 9 pounds.
Yeah, exactly.
A few times.
Oh, she definitely was not some 15, 16 pounder.
Right.
She
Big
was
frame.
lean.
That's a giant frame.
Yeah. She had the frame. She was just lean.
Got it.
She was, a mountain fish that hadn't been eating trout like in California
Right.
or anything. But, I was a little...
Or in Appalachians.
Or, it happens. Appalachians.
Appalachians.
So think of it as Latchin. So for all you Californians, it's Appalachian. Everybody from out of town says Appalachian. Appalachian.
Can't wait to get you into Southern California so I can make fun of all your pronunciations.
I knew, yeah,
It's
that's
all
why I
regional.
had to call it out. It's all regional.
I bet that.
It's local talk. So, okay, shortly after that sucker trout incident, I was like, talk to the thick pins. I told them I needed ASAP because like every fish in the lake wanted that bait, and I was gonna get 50-pound limits, and they were like, all right, we'll see what you can do. They asked me how I got it. I was like, it was a rock wall, a little brush, and they were stoked because they were like, oh, this kid's like onto it with in the east, so they got it to me, but it was probably a month, man. But Sorry, thick pins, but it was like a month. And so in the meantime, I bought the stupid Storm paddle tail with the lead
like
in the
a
middle.
wild eye shad?
Yeah, like a wild eye, but like a bigger one. I bought like a 6-inch.
They make a big one.
Yeah,
they make
a
9-inch one.
They make 9-inchers. Yeah. But like I bought a 6-inch bluegill color. I was like, well, maybe it'll do something. It was around May, and the fish were hanging around beds, and I was throwing a tube jig, I was throwing a Texas rig, I was throwing conventional stuff, and then this fish wanted nothing to do. She wasn't locked on by any means, but she was kind of just roaming the area. And she was chasing bluegill away. She was getting real, pissed off about that. So I pull out the Storm. I throw it. It was on a end of a boat ramp, like a personal private boat ramp, and I cast it onto the cement so it didn't spook her, and then cranked it down. First cast, after ignoring all the bait, she just ran it down, pinned it against the concrete, missed it, cast back, did the same thing, and then she inhaled it. Set the hook. I didn't put it on my thing. Set the hook, caught her. She took me under a dock. I had a little crankbait rod. It's a little flint. It was a KVD. Kevin Van
Shout
Dam.
out to KVD.
It was a KVD cranking stick,
Wow.
But it had a real flimsy tip to absorb the I was lucky I caught that fish on a top hook Storm.
Wow.
But that fish was 28 inches.
Okay.
And
You get a weight on that one.
Yeah, no, that was the one. So I had my whole family come down from the lake house. This was like, my dad, my mom, my sister. They came down with one of those Sony video recorders.
Oh, the
Yeah,
shoulder
well,
one?
I mean, it was like a handheld.
Okay,
Yeah,
it was like a handy cam kind of almost.
So they sat there and recorded, and the picture I have of it is actually just a still that I just did like freeze frame. And I mean, I'm holding it out, and the thick pin saw it. I mean, it's just like it's 28 inches. We measured it.
It's giant.
Yeah, out of a canoe, and
But this one was not skinny and post spawn.
No, it was fat, and spring scale 14 on the dot. So technically that would be my personal best, but if you don't count a spring scale, this one here is a 13.6.
Spring scales can be accurate.
Yeah. And, this was 13.6 on a digital scale, so it was bigger than this one. But that was a different context. I was wanting to get them just not on a bed or not near a bed. I wanted them to react to it naturally in their environment where they're, ambushing. And, I don't know. I don't get as much excitement about the bed. But it was interesting that the conventional stuff, she wanted nothing to do with.
Right.
The little bluegill swimbait, she was all about it. So these fish just reacted so differently.
Size was a trigger.
Yeah. So she hadn't seen something that big.
Right.
She was mad at bluegill. She hadn't seen something paddling like that.
Cool, man.
Even something basic as that they hadn't seen, So
that's wild.
So we're doing the timeline. So I caught that fish, and it still, it invigorated me. And then I got the sucker trout finally from the thick pins. Went to Lake Jocassee, name drop. A lot of people that are listening to this, they fish this lake. It is tough. I mean, it will beat you down. This is an amazing story. I was with Brock Lackey, your first day ever there. We just ran points, ran laydowns, probably our second laydown. I frontal casted, which means the laydowns here, threw a stalker trout across the front, slow rolling it in, and I felt it just a tick, tick, and I was like, oh, she didn't get it, and I was reeling it in. It's a wolf pack, probably 4 of them. Leading fish was a 12-pounder. I kid you not. And Brock and I he was up there just looking at these. I mean, you could see their belly. You could see how big they were. They were submarines.
We got out there for a few hours a couple days ago, and it's every bit of 30-foot visibility.
30 foot.
Like every bit.
Yeah.
It's clear, deep, reminding me a lot of West Coast style deep, clear reservoirs. So, I mean, you could see everything, and so can they.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it was wild that was, after fishing that lake for weeks after that I got a bite that quickly, that big, on a stalker trout. Just the top hook. Well, so this is wild. So Brock jumps up. He was eating lunch. And he jumps up, sees the fish. He picks up his stalker trout. He throws a downside cast instead of in the front, down a side. So we call a sidle cast. And he's reeling it, and we see this fish come from 15 feet out from under the laydown. Just chomp his bait. Sets the hook, she jumps and throws it. So Brock and I, at this point, our perception of this lake is that...
So you guys are hooking these fish early.
And they're just...
And they're coming off.
Yeah.
Coming out of the water, shaking it off.
Yeah. Well, the first one,
I never even swang. It just felt like a tick like you get on a jig, and she had probably hit it really hard, trying to stun it or something.
Right.
But then I saw the size of
it.
her.
And closed her mouth on it, which they do a lot on soft baits. Especially a 7-inch stalker trout really isn't that big
For a 12-pounder.
For a giant.
Yeah, and I should have swung on it. I just didn't know what was happening. I thought it was actually in the tree, like the other day you talked about. I actually wasn't sure if I was in the tree. It was like tick tick, and then I saw these fish. So yeah, it was ridiculous.
So here's a freebie for you guys: soft bait bites, swing.
Yeah, swing, absolutely. But at that point, we were unhinged in our attitude because we were thinking, "Oh my God, like we've struck the gold mine. 12-pounders left and right. Brock lost in a matter of a minute. We had just lost 2 enormous fish." And I mean, I called my dad, and I was like manic. He was at back of the campground, and we were like 15. I was like, the first point we came to, 12-pounders everywhere, like, little did I know, that is one of the toughest lakes in the United States to catch big fish. We can talk about if it's tougher than California, and you don't have enough time on it. Maybe you can catch them.
I mean, we'll see.
There's small windows to get them.
Those conditions, they set up for a tough bite, especially with big fish. I don't care where you live.
Yeah.
Big fish are hard to fool.
Yeah.
Especially in high visibility situations where they can see everything.
Yeah. And I mean, at that point, my perspective was these fish were easy. They were dumb.
Wow.
And just go to every laydown and you're going to catch a 10-pounder. That's what I went to my mind because I was like, power fish. And then it was not that way. It was a fresh laydown. Everybody talks about, so it was green, like an evergreen tree, still had all the green on it. And this is interesting. Most people think that fish shy away from that. And in this case, at Jocassee, I can tell you, they like the green laydowns.
I've had terrible luck fishing around.
Yeah, and we've talked about that.
Pine trees.
Super bizarre that happened the first day. Super bizarre that they like green laydowns and that they get real dumb around them. They won't hit on a normal laydown. Very hard to catch fish ever since then. We've spent weeks. I know other people have spent weeks out there. You can literally get skunked every day.
Right.
So that again fueled my obsession for swim baits. It was just a tease, you know.
Right.
Following the timeline, I moved back to Florida.
Okay.
I was still on cow fishing, obsessing over swim baits. Came across Ken Huddleston's, and before he had launched it, he had the little podunk website, but it had a picture of him holding this realistic looking trout, and with that first little paddle tail, whatever you want to call it. What is that?
Wedge tail.
The wedge tail.
Yeah.
Yep. And it was like taking pre-orders, and I saw that, and I talked to Brock after our experience at Jocassee, and I was like, look at these things. They look like live trout. We know where the big fish are, so we're going to order those. So from Ken Huddleston, I ordered, I think, 3 of the original, probably the first release that he did.
Wow.
And I was talking to my friends at Cow Fishing, Rob Bellany, and the other guys in that group.
A lot of those guys didn't have confidence in that bait right off the bat, man. It's a staple in the trophy fishing community now, but
absolutely
early on, that style of swim was so new and so uninspiring to most.
Yeah, it was very subtle.
It didn't swim.
Yeah, it was just kind of a little swim. Absolutely. So I talked to them about it, and they... Sorry, Rob Bellany, I've got to say it. So they had a little... they were iffy about it. They were like, well, the hard baits get a better hookup ratio. That's a direct quote. And I was just open to anything that looked real. I just wanted to get these fish to react and eat. I wasn't thinking about stuff like that. But an MS Slammer and a Huddleston, the MS Slammer catches the heck out of fish, but there's one that's a little more realistic for a Clearwater lake. So I had no qualms about it. So it's pretty wild. I was fishing the Huddleston out there, the first release of the Ken Huddleston Deluxe, and I know some guys in California hadn't started. It hadn't swarmed the country. It hadn't passed the country yet.
It hadn't caught enough fish yet to validate itself to the masses.
Yeah, and that's actually.
But it did.
But it did, and that's literally maybe the root of what this whole podcast to me is about is fishing a bait that's not proven yet.
Have a mind of your own, people.
Fishing a bait that you haven't heard, oh, it slays them, it catches them. Fish it, because of your own confidence by looking at it, seeing the way it swims, and say, okay,
Because we had to.
yeah,
We had to
Is
take these baits
Yeah.
and see what we could do with them.
yeah,
There
absolutely.
was no other reference to validate
No,
whether a concept or a lure or a technique or a piece of equipment worked the way we anticipated.
yeah, absolutely. And so to me,
And even
that was
now,
exciting.
yeah, it's one of the most important parts of the experience, in my opinion, and the most liberating, because you're no longer dependent on watching someone else do it first.
Yeah, that's what brought me the excitement, was trying something that nobody was doing.
Right,
The
'cause that
pioneering factor.
That gave you a huge advantage.
Yeah, oh yeah. Because it made fish react in a way they weren't to everybody's crankbait or to everybody's normal bait. These fish were reacting completely different.
Yeah.
And so that's the root to me of a lot of this, is just trying something new that's not proven. Like you said, have a mind of your own a little bit. And it's a rare thing in fishing. It's very rare. And I got lucky.
Now these days it is.
Yeah.
For sure.
But I got lucky to be on that precipice of that first. I feel privileged.
Hey man, kudos to you for taking the risks and the gambles.
Yeah.
Well, you're spending your own money on this.
Yeah. That people thought was going to be a waste. Yeah.
Because honestly, I spent a lot of money on things that didn't really pan out. But it's part of the process.
It's part of the process.
How else would you ever know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I think we live now in an age where there's so much information out there with very few ways of filtering it.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult to discern what's usable information and what's really not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that brings me to another question. So
Sure.
obviously you've been around this fishing culture for a long time. Do you prefer the way it used to be, or do you prefer the way it is now?
The good old days, or how
as
it is
far as
now.
how fishing content is generated and digested.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Right? TV, print magazine, very early forums possibly, versus Instagram,
instantaneous,
Facebook, YouTube, very instantaneous.
Mm-hmm.
Which do you prefer?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think
Both personally and for like the culture of fishing.
Okay, yeah. Well, no, I mean personally, I liked it when you had to find it out on your own, and there was, but you still had to get that information. But of course, I would prefer when I got to pioneer something that people weren't doing, and people weren't able to just get on a bite from somebody else's Instagram post instantaneously.
Right.
So it was a little more, there's more satisfaction in it because I came up with it myself, or I had this idea myself. I didn't copy it from somebody that I saw on Instagram, which we all have done, I'm sure. Like you see a bite and you're like, dang, well that's hot, I'm going to do that, because you see it. So personally, I prefer the good old days. I read the Bassmaster magazines. That's all and then that was even before cow fishing, and just fascinated as a little kid, like, oh, how are they catching them? But and nowadays it has a positive too. The fishermen are more connected.
Right.
You do have to worry about sharing your bite, and bites do. I do have to say, one negative I've seen, of course, is bites get blown up, and the fisheries do go downhill, and all fisheries cycle. But like when there's a fishery gets hot, it's spread all over Instagram, and then you got everybody and their grandma there.
Yeah.
And that fishery will,
We
because
saw that in Headwaters.
Yep, you saw it firsthand. So Headwaters, if there's any time of fishery that's going to sustain, that's probably one of them. Although the fishing will decline, it's inevitable with that many people.
I feel like those windows are just shorter now.
Yeah,
because there's no getting around it anymore.
it's going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no more secrets.
Yeah,
It is what it is.
The YouTube culture. I mean,
you got to take the good with the bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go back and forth on my perspective on it.
Yeah, that's a great question.
I feel like our generation benefited the most because we had to really, really earn it.
Yeah.
The new generation, and this is really, this is independent of age groups.
Yeah.
We're talking about the new influx of anglers of
Exactly.
all age demographics.
Right. Excellent.
They benefit from that quick learning curve, but they also suffer because there's so much info to wade through. Man, they're listening to some people they should not be listening to. across the board on
That's true.
all kinds of topics. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's no filter anymore.
Right. Yeah. That's
yeah,
true.
there's
There's
no
a
editor.
flooding of information.
It's a flooding of information. So, once again, I always encourage our audience to really vet their information and pay attention to where it's coming from. And are those concepts and ideas validated by a body of work like
body
yours?
Of work, yeah.
'Cause you've got an incredible body of work. I mean, gosh, man, look at this. Like,
we just put these up for a few.
These are just a few fish.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you want to maybe go through a couple of these and talk about, just briefly, on each one and what makes those fish special to you.
Stories for days I have, and this podcast we're going to limit to an hour. This one's actually hilarious that you landed on because it was wild. So this is a 12.5, but I mean this one's hilarious, dude. So there was a loaf of bread, 15 loaves of bread that were just floating by this dock.
What?
And no, they were just soggy, and this fish hit under it, and I caught it. And when I netted her, there was like 5 loaves.
Okay, backtrack here. Why is there bread in the water?
$1 million question. I was like Twilight Zone, dude. There was not a person inside. It was in Moccasin Creek. I was like, what is all this bread doing? And I was fishing Huddleston in the middle of it. That's why I was like,
was somebody trying to feed birds, or I mean,
there's no explanation.
Was it wheat bread? Was it white bread?
White bread. It was white bread. This is a true story.
It flew off someone's boat.
But it was like a rainy day in March. There wasn't any activity.
Crazy.
Just crazy story, yeah.
Crazy, man. Did you stop throwing swim baits when you moved back to Florida?
Back to Florida? Yeah.
Why?
Well, so there was only the stalker trout at that time.
Okay.
And we were obsessed, with Jocassee because of all the double digits that we had seen. Florida, we got brackish, muddy water, shallow water.
Hey man, Rick Clem was catching 10s on spinnerbeats last year.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
St. John's.
Alright, well, I'm trying to think. We moved to Florida, well, probably farther south, and not where the dolphins and the redfish are. Well, whatever Oliver's trying to hammer me about. When I went back to Florida, I was fishing with Brock and Marshall. We did fish spinner, and we fished spinner baits. We fished normal stuff. I mean, I didn't see a stalker trout. No, actually, no. You know what? I caught a fish on stick marsh on a stalker trout. So I did still have it in a tournament. I threw it at the spillway, stick marsh, but no, I'd gotten my limit, and I was like, I'm gonna throw this swim bait. Swim baits are my thing. Jason Stake, when you watch this, you'll know I was in the back of your boat. We won that tournament, first and second. we were. I was on a jerk bait, long A bite, but I got my limit, and I threw a stalker trout against the spillway dam. Just got crunched, and I caught the fish. I freaked out at first because there's 10 pounders there. It was like a 4.5 pounder, but it called me like a 4 pounder.
That's awesome.
So no, I was still in the swim bait obsession,
Cool.
but it was just a little bit more difficult with the grass and the stalker trout, and I'd gotten a baby bass color from the thick pins.
Oh yeah, I remember that thing.
Yeah.
Only available in the 7-inch.
Yep. Yeah. Good memory. I didn't remember that. Wow. Yeah, the thick pins. So I was still really in touch with them. That was the bait. And then when the Ken Huddleston site came up and we got our eyes on that trout, Brock and I looked at each other. Said, we've got to get back on Jocassee. This is, okay, now I can date this. This is 2005 spring break. So we can go back and look at the date and the timeline of when the HUD first came out. But we pre-ordered the HUD, and we had spring break 2005, so that was March.
Okay.
Remember this like it was yesterday. We went up there for a camping trip. We were sure we were going to, slay them. First 2 days, 0 fish. We're throwing ROF 5, ROF 16, everywhere we could think of. Laydowns, points. Water was 48, 49 degrees. Third or fourth morning, we go out. I mean, we're deflated. I mean, you fish that many days, and you SoCal guys know, you can grind for days, and you're just looking for one bite. And that's the mentality that we had. We're like, we've got to be like those SoCal guys. And, even though we had 5 days for our spring break, we were just gonna throw the HUD only the whole
That
time.
takes a lot, man.
I mean, especially back then.
Yeah, a lot of people can't do it.
I mean it's deflating. I mean, just the other day dude. I mean, Oliver had a better attitude. I wanted to fish. We didn't catch a fish. I was sour about it. And I mean, this is 2021. I mean, we're little kids at 2005. And we went 3 days of our spring break. We drove 8 hours to get to this lake.
Wow.
Away from Florida.
Right.
Because we're thinking double digits. And so 3 days we've invested. And so I think it was the fourth morning. Brock, correct me maybe in the comments or something. Maybe it's the third morning. And I literally, this is going to be, all information here. I mean, information I probably wouldn't want to say. I picked up a drop shot. We went to a point that looked really good. Brock was still, he picked up a RO5. I was like, the sun was coming in and out. I threw a drop shot out. Brock bombed an RO5 off this point. Channel comes in, and he was just reeling. And dude, we've been doing this for 3 days straight. We weren't expecting anything.
Oh yeah, you get lulled into that.
You just get,
like,
dude. This gives me. I'm getting goosebumps right now. He's just sitting there reeling. I'm drop shotting, and all of a sudden, I can just hear this clatter up here, and he just like freaks, and he's like real. And it was the first tick of her inhaling, and then he gets a second tick, and he just sets the hook, and he's just like, oh my god, just the freaking, because you haven't had a bite. 3 or 4 days.
Right.
You've never got bit on the Huddleston, period.
Right.
So it hasn't proven. So he just, and then his rod is bent over, and I run up with the net, and we're just like, holy cow! And the most beautiful mountain bass, 9.5 pounds. I think he ended up beating it, but that was his PB for a long time. She comes up jumping. The bait is down, in her chokers. What is it called? Crushers. Sorry about that. Chokers. Crushers. But this bait was swallowed. I netted it.
You're hanging with too many Asheville girls, bro.
No. So this is an important moment though. So he netted this fish. She had it. And no, this is her first head fish. This is it's so much tension, so much building up. So no, the tension release.
Oh yeah.
It wasn't my fish. I started screaming. Like I got hoarse with excitement, fist pumping. Because it was just validation of something that we had daydreamed about for literally probably years. Because the stalker trout thing had happened 3 years prior.
Wow, right.
2002 to 2005. So for 3 years I was salivating about getting these big fish. So Brock ends up catching the first one.
Dude, a 9.5 pounder is a giant bass.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
Always.
And it was gorgeous. The sun came out, and you see this beautiful, Huddleston down in her mouth, and we're just like, never seen anything like it. And it finally worked. After 3 or 4 days in 3 years, and Brock started screaming after me. We were both just like, oh, I mean, in the mountains, there's nobody around us. It was echoing in the mountains, man. Those steep gorges. It was echoing. It was one of those moments I'll never forget. It wasn't even my fish.
That's dope.
We put it in the live well. I made the next cast and got railed, and it was a 7 pounder. And my excitement level, I screamed 12 pounder. I was like 12. It's a 12. Because at that point I was like, this is wide open. It was a 7 pounder, but she swallowed it too. And we ended up that week. We got 4 over 8 after that. Besides that first one on that same point, rest of the lake was fishing tough. No, you know what? I'm sorry. The next day, I got an 11. How could I leave that out? Off an island, ROF5, bombed a cast. It was 48-degree water, cloudy day, misty day, and I just got the little tick. It was just one little tick, set the hook. It was an 11 pounder. Our hands were numb. Actually, I think later that day, Brock was like, we got to go in, man. Enough is enough. I wanted to keep fishing, just for the record, but... So that was the first breakthrough moment where that's important to point out. Where 3 years of kind of missing fish on stalker trout,
right?
Not having it dialed down right,
learning the hard way,
and then finally getting hands on the Huddleston, but it still didn't come immediately.
And mind you, the technology surrounding big bait fishing didn't exist.
Yeah.
For the most part, where are you throwing this stuff on rod reel wise?
Originally, we only had flipping sticks. Now we did by that time we had the right 2005. We had the right setup. We had the Akuma extra heavy swimbait rod,
The Guide Select
vintage,
series?
the Guide
Yeah.
Select series, and yeah, by that time we were at least equipped with the right stuff. 25-pound mono. So by 2005,
So yeah, at this point in time, the technology around
it
swimbait
just
fishing,
emerged. Maybe, yeah.
it was very basic and rudimentary. There aren't all the options that we have today. Very few people made swimbait specific gear.
Yeah, no. I mean, and that Guide Select was the first swimbait rod I owned. Before that, hilarious is I was throwing on a flipping stick. I threw my first Hud on a flipping stick.
Which for its time was a very heavy rod.
Yeah. Oh, that was the big rod that we had, and but it was hefty. And you know, I have plenty of stories before that first one we landed on the right gear. I lost, and this is what we're talking about, trial and error. I lost a ton of big fish on RO5, letting it kind of fish like a Cinco. I'd see a fish come, bite it, and I just couldn't get a hook set in it. You know, just didn't have the equipment. So with that first fish, as we've been discussing, tons of trial and error, 3 years of daydreaming about how to get it done. That moment finally came, but it did not come instantly. There was so much that went wrong. Flipping sticks, getting the right gear. It wasn't known at that time.
Yeah.
You know, it was, and like you just said, the swimbait gear was just emerging. It wasn't really there
And
in
you're
the mass.
in the mountains here.
Yeah,
At least I was in Southern California where I had saltwater fishing.
yeah. So I didn't even realize that.
Those options.
Yeah.
Because I was using inshore saltwater rods.
Yep. Okay. Wow, that's
Which
really cool.
really aren't that far off from what we're using today.
Those 8-foot rods. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So kudos to you guys for making do with what you guys had available. I can't even imagine. Like, it's tough to find the right gear. Sometimes even now, let alone in 2005.
Look at my gear sometimes right now. It's pretty funny.
Man.
No, absolutely. No, and it all stems from that obsession, that daydreaming of making it happen, even though it wasn't easy.
Yeah, you know, this is going to be the first part of what is probably going to be a multi-part series here with Jeremy. So I just wanted to give you guys a little broad, basic background. My man's here. He's been embedded in big fish culture for a long time.
I'm 35 now, and since I was 14.
Wow. You're a new OG, man. Like, seriously.
The new OG.
You've seen things that very few people have seen.
Present day.
Accomplished things that very few bass fishermen have ever accomplished. So feel proud of that, man. And
Well, thank you, Oliver.
I'm excited to share more of your story.
It's gonna be fun. I have a lot of stories
Yeah.
for the second episode.
And
Yeah,
he's got a ton of current relevant content now coming across his Instagram, which is pretty popular. Jump on his YouTube channel, subscribe, support this man. He's got a lot to give back to the culture. Excited to announce that he's going to be conducting his own personal training sessions throughout his journeys, because he's going to continue to fish Minnesota, fish here in the Appalachians.
Yeah, Appalachians. Got it. Look at that. One time I only have to tell him.
And
You got
and wherever else his own big bass dreams takes him.
Yeah, no, I'll
You're
be
always chasing it, man.
Yeah.
I love it.
chasing the bite like a lot of people do. But I might make it to Florida. But yeah, I love to take people fishing. And
So stay tuned.
Yep.
Send him a message, shoot him an email. We'll leave some information in the description below so you guys can contact this man.
Yeah.
His energy is infectious. Don't bring anything on the boat because he's going to have his stuff laying all over the place.
Oh gosh, yeah. And it's a mad scientist type deal. But you know what? We catch fish. But no, next episode though, for real, we're gonna.
What are we talking about next episode?
Next episode, we haven't even tapped into the glory days. Like we just got to the point. We got to the build up. This episode 1 was build up, so you could probably label it that. Episode 2 is when we cash in. This is when.
This is when all this wildness starts. Oh,
45
boy.
pounds, 49 pounds, 45 pounds.
What do you? Is that for 5?
5 for 5. And I had a day with Brock. We each had individual 45-pound limits. Our 5 best. Blew the top off of some of these, and we were hiding it from the locals. The locals 25-pound limit would win every single tournament on these lakes.
That's a good bag.
That's a great bag. But we were laughing at it. and we don't mean this in a too much of a cocky way, but like it was crazy. We were always laughing. We would be up there throwing them on docks, and we'd see people out vertical jigging spoons. Now
the herring bite, right?
The herring bite, and we're loading 10-pounders in the boat, and it was a dream for me because I didn't like doing the offshore stuff at that time. Doing the little vertical jigging, and I was just going dock power fishing 10-pounder. So it's an awesome period when we were able to cash in, and this build-up really makes it the root of swim bait in the East Coast, and that's what's exciting about this. I mean, I can say definitively that I don't know anybody else, and I don't think anybody else was fishing swim baits out. I mean, I know that I got the first Huddlestons, and I don't know. This is my claim to fame. I'm not trying to boast here. You probably have to edit this out, but. Yes, this was the beginning.
Speak from the heart, man. Tell them what time it is.
So the build-up, so epic. The cash-in, we deserved it. We got it. Overflowing the cash-in. The glory days. The good old days. Brock and I will always look back. Marshall and I will always look back. And, I go to the same lakes. I've taken Oliver to them some. And, it's not easy anymore. It's the fish have either gotten smart or maybe they're on a down cycle. There's not as many big ones. But 45-pound limits is just kind of average. It was nuts.
Hey, man, I was high-fiving.
Nuts.
Celebrating with my man Austin yesterday, catching 4s and 5s.
Yeah, 4s and 5s. So it changed. So kind of peaked, and then you can't get any better than that type thing. And we're always looking to do better than that. The guys going to Texas and all that, trying to get those big, giant limits.
Yep.
But I was lucky enough to get those 45-pound limits, and we're going to talk about that next episode, the cashing in.
For sure.
The cashing in episode. Anything else to say?
Man, hopefully you guys enjoyed this build-up episode. Leave a comment below. If you guys have any questions that you want me to ask this man for episode 2, leave them down in the comments. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to his channel.
Thanks, Oliver.
Yeah, man. Thank you, brother. Look forward to seeing what we discover on the water here while we're here in this region.
Yeah, it's
I've got about another week or so to play around before I gotta get to Bama.
It's our new chance to pioneer something new.
Yeah.
We're gonna find something.
We're gonna definitely figure something else out because we got a whole lot of new toys to play with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're gonna keep still.
It's not a Huddleston anymore, folks.
Well, we're just gonna do our best to maximize our opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we're having to earn them.
Yeah,
like we always did.
Yeah, it's tough, but if we fish these new toys, as you're saying, it could make it a little easier.
Yeah, for sure. So, cheers to that.
My man.
We'll catch you guys on the next episode. Appreciate you guys tuning in. We're out.
I think that's awesome, a two-parter. The build-up and then the cashing in. That's dope.
Yeah, man.
You a keyboard pirate, my man, that's hella my track. Instrument you catch fish, get him in the net quick, cast for another stick. That real deal, raw uncut, still chasing PBs, cause it's never enough. My track. Instrument you catch fish, get him in the net quick, cast for another stick. That real deal, raw uncut, still chasing PBs, cause it's never enough.
Medium light, graphite for the subtlest bites. Some bright blue skies, not a cloud in sight. It's dynamite when I drop, and the school ignites, pinning them down on the